Welcome back to the Alec Lewis Show. I am your host, Alec Lewis. This is episode 179, recording on Thursday, June 25th. LaMelo Ball traded to the Timberwolves. Not going to talk about that. I will leave that to the John Krasinski Show, my colleague at The Athletic. Instead, going to answer a few Vikings questions from you guys at the top, and then an awesome guest for you today, at least in my eyes. It's the type of stuff that I love to do over the summer, where you hop on with anybody and everybody to try to learn about the game that helps me think about it, and hopefully you guys think about it when the fall arrives. So the guest is A.J. Smith. A.J. has been the offensive coordinator for the St. Louis Battlehawks. Believe this fall he's going to be working with the Colorado Buffaloes in the quarterback's room. He's been an OC in the UFL for a while, and you guys might be like, well, what's he? For me, it's a way to talk to a guy who calls plays, who game plans, during the year, who understands what it is like to actually wear the headset and be in it every single day. So hopefully, I definitely took a ton out of it. Hopefully, you guys, it helps you think about ball in a special or more deep way. And if we do that, feel like we accomplished something here on this late June afternoon. So yeah, before we get to AJ, we're gonna do a couple things. Gonna answer some Vikings questions and talk a little bit about some big subjects. First and foremost, if you're new here watching on YouTube, please hit the subscribe button. It helps us out. If you're listening on Apple, Spotify, iHeart, wherever you get your podcasts, please rate, review, follow us, and give us 5 stars. Why not? Some questions I didn't get to early in the week that I wanted to touch on a little bit. There was a Twitter user, Danny Carlson, who sent me a great question. He said, a lot has been made about the Vikings making moves to improve their run game, but not enough people are talking about what a healthy Christian Darrisaw will mean. The run game was very solid before his injury, and then completely nosedive after that. The numbers are hard to ignore. That is absolutely, positively correct, and it's why, I've said now for, weeks, months, that behind the quarterback conversation, Christian Darrisaw's availability, his health, and his productivity are clearly, for me, a top 5 most important element of this 2026 season, going the way you guys want this 2026 season to go. It's just, and I don't need to tell you guys, you watch it every Sunday, but when you look at the raw numbers, and I'll pull these up just for perspective, like when Christian Darrisaw is active and available, even in 2025, where the pass game didn't really provide more space for the run game, it's just a clear advantage. So when Christian Darrisaw was on the field in 2025, team averaged 4.9 yards per carry and a 48.3% rushing success rate. To compare that, the highest yards per carry team in the NFL was the Baltimore Ravens at 5.3 yards per carry, and then the Buffalo Bills at 5 yards per carry. So the Vikings would have ranked third there. And then from a rushing success rate perspective, 48.3 would have been number 2 in the NFL behind the Los Angeles Rams. So it's just unbelievable differences there, and it's a little bit of a difficult way to fully probably analyze things, but it is a notable picture. With Christian Darrisaw not on the field, the Vikings rushing success rate fell more than 10%, from 48.3% to 37%, and then the yards per carry dropped from 4.9 to 4.2. So again, there's a lot of gray area and variables with those numbers, but it is undeniable that Christian Darrisaw's availability is massive for the run game. And this is why if you factor in Christian Darrisaw's availability, and then you rise the passing game to a certain level with improved quarterback play, that then forces defenses into playing with multiple too high defenders and a lot of players in coverage, and there's more space underneath to run the football, and you're improving in the run game because of offensive line change and Frank Smith's addition, then offensively you start to potentially be cooking a little bit with what's possible. And that's where, if you want to be an optimist for what the Vikings can accomplish in 2026, this whole conversation is a massive part of that. And it's a lot of ifs, and you're betting a lot on being rosy and positive in the way you're viewing it, but I don't think it's an unrealistic path to think about. So just was on my mind when I got that question / comment from Daniel Carlson, and appreciated him passing that my way. The other question that I wanted to get to before we get to AJ was from username, and it's I don't know if I should even say it, at @rawdog_evo. The question was, is it unrealistic that an Occam's razor situation plays out at quarterback? J.J. McCarthy continues to develop upward. Kyler wins the job this year due to being a higher floor / vet. JJ's progress leads to him and another vet in 2027, and Kyler prices himself out of Nolan Teasley's price range. Yeah, I mean, I think all of that stuff. I mean, I'm always a fan of Occam's razor, which is that the lowest or like the most obvious result / probability probably is going to be the most accurate and correct one. And so I'm always a big fan of it. I think in many ways, it's really easy to want to look ahead to 2027 spring and etc. Like I just think so much can happen and so much can change, and there's so much variance of injury, of production, of success or lack thereof that can dictate the emotions and the feel of all of that. But part of the reason I'd say the conversation around Kyler has been what it's been, or was what it was throughout the spring, was just because of Occam's razor. When you're bringing in a guy who has started 7 seasons in the NFL, 87 games, compared to a guy who started 10, like it just gives you a pretty clear, at least benchmark for what might be possible. And then the idea of JJ McCarthy developing, like, absolutely. This guy is 23 years old who now has 10 starts under his belt and knows what he needs to improve and progress. If you expect anything other than development from a guy who is motivated and committed, I think that would be totally false. And so, I think, that perspective is one that totally makes sense to me. But again, as I said on the earlier week show, or the show that we did earlier this week, like, I'm going to view this thing very objectively once training camp begins, and just watch how things look on the field, watch how the teammates and coaches respond, hear how the teammates and coaches respond, and go from there, as opposed to entering with any preconceived idea of what I expect to happen based upon what people throughout the league expect to happen. So, yeah, that's how I talk about that. And with that, let's get to some sponsors before we get right into this conversation with AJ Smith. First and foremost, this show is presented by First Resource Bank. I would hope by now you guys know about First Resource Bank, but they are a member FDIC bank in the Minneapolis area with branches all over this fine city, especially fine here in the summer. And it's run by really good people: Tim Siegley, Aaron Siegley, Charlie Anderson. They've got relationships with people all throughout the community, and they've built a banking platform that I know businesses have loved using. I personally have loved using it since I moved up here. Their online banking platform is really easy to use. And then you add in the fact that these guys are huge Vikings fans, and even like Christy at the front desk of the Washington location is also, she wants to know about the quarterback just like everybody else. So really awesome people, really cool banking platform, and we can't thank them enough for their support of the show. Show is also sponsored by Pro Men Athletics. I would say, these guys, Kurt Graham and Tanner, they came together like, how can we lift the tide of youth football development in Minnesota? Tanner is Tanner Morgan, former Gophers quarterback, and he has put together a summer 7-on-7 league for 5th through 9th graders. He's also privately training a bunch of high-level quarterback prospects who will probably play in college in 2028, 29. So a couple things I would say. If you have a son or you have friends who have kids who want to play in high school, who want to play in college, who want to be around people who are totally committed and giving back and helping their development, please check out Pro Man. And then if you have kids who are interested or like on the cusp of not sure how much are they invested, they also play hockey, basketball, I would just say get involved with Pro Man. The worst thing that happens is they meet really good people who, like I said, are like-minded and just awesome to be around. Show's also sponsored by Unreal, the clothing brand based out of St. Paul that puts together as high end of athleisure as it gets. And then Great Clips. I want to tell you guys about my friends at Great Clips. Life comes with a lot of things to remember, and Great Clips doesn't think your haircut should be one of them. That's why they use clip notes at Great Clips to save your haircut details notes, so no matter which stylist you see or Great Clip salon you visit, it's easy to feel like the best version of you. So do yourself a favor, say goodbye to the guesswork and hello to a great haircut every time. Download the Great Clips app today. Great Clips, it's going to be great. With that, thank you for being here. Hope you enjoy the conversation with A.J. Smith, which we will get to right now. All right, A.J., welcome to the show. Have followed you and your stuff for a long time, listened to some interviews, clinic stuff you've done in the past. So thought it would be fun. We talk Viking stuff all the time, but in the summer, try to learn a little bit. So thanks for hopping on. Hope you've been good, man.
I'm doing good. No, let's talk some ball. Appreciate it.
You're coming directly off of a UFL season. I would just wonder. I mean, you've done this now and been an OC in that league now for multiple years. I guess the question is like, what have you learned over the last 4 years about what it requires in that league in the position that you obviously have had?
Definitely consistency, efficiency, and you look at that league. It's razor thin margins between winning and losing. There was no bad team last year. There were a few bad breaks when injuries happen, and if you look at that league, almost all 8 teams, every quarterback plays. So it's almost like, I don't want to say luck, but if you get enough to where your quarterback doesn't get hurt and it goes back to consistency, man, that's key. And great quarterback play and having consistency of O-line, those are 2 keys to winning at that level.
Makes sense. One of the first things I thought it'd be a fun little discussion. Like on this show all the time, as I'm evaluating games of the season and I'm analyzing offense, I always, defer to turnovers, explosive plays. Like those are critical numbers that I look at within these games. So for me, part of the fun of this conversation is like for you as you're game planning offense, as you're preparing play calling, I wonder like at a top level, what benchmarks for you, what are you looking to accomplish just on a broad kind of global level as you enter some of these games?
Everyone talks about the turnover battle and margin. That one's really out there. The next thing you go past that is for offensively is an explosive battle of plays of 20 or more. So if like you win the turnover battle, you win the explosive battle, boom, you have like some 90-something% chance of winning. What was new that we kind of discovered this year, me and our defensive coordinator, Corey Chamlin, we started really looking at third downs. And we did all the PFF analytics, and whoever was converting per game, like we did that at a per game deal. Don't look at the whole season and go, oh, they ranked 6th, they ranked 1st, but look at it per game. And if a team was staying on the field, getting over 50% of third down, which would put you at an elite level, being over 50%. And if another team, a bad day is 10%, 20%, man, it was almost 100%, and that was the team that was winning. So we started putting a lot of emphasis on third down and then more so percentages of just giving us the highest analytical play to convert those downs. You see it in the NFL now, like the one I'm always trying to evolve with is third and XL. How do we treat 3rd and 10, 3rd and 12? And a lot of times you hear the old John Madden, well, why would you run a route that's short of the first downs? Well, the hardest thing on defense for them, they'll drop the perfect coverage and they'll go, man, if we tackle,
Yeah.
and so one of the top plays is all verticals on 3rd and 12. They dump it off to the back. He makes one guy miss and gets the first down. That's it happened like 8 or 9 times this year in our league. So we just started looking at easier percentage plays and tried to up our third down percentage as the year went on because we understood how important of a stat that was.
What is the process like when you are looking at, easier plays to or the best possible plays to convert there? Like, how do you go about that? Is it you're looking up through PFF's database, like, what are all the conversions on 3rd and 10 plus, and just like jotting down some of those concepts? Like, I read way out there, but like, what does that process actually look like?
Yeah, it's kind of like that because honestly, I learned that the very first time I ever hung out with Mike Leach. Because I'd never really heard of anyone doing this, and maybe it was common sense, but it wasn't common sense to me. I was a young 20-year-old coach. Uh, he was sitting there, and he was going till midnight, and he had his GA pull up every top game of here's a 550-yard game in FCS, here's a 480-yard passing game. He wanted to see how everybody was throwing that football.
Hmm.
And 90% of the time, he wasn't going to take anything away from that. He's still going to run cross, mesh, stick, shallow. He's going to be, but he wanted to see how they're doing it, if anything's evolved, and if there's something he's missing, maybe from a play calling standpoint, in what they did. And we look around the league and we do exactly that. Like I just gave you the example of the dump off. And
Yeah.
I'm just curious of what are people calling at that point? Because again, we probably have that in, but are we calling it at the right time? See, everybody has a lot of similar stuff in, but I'll give you one example. I give a lot of respect to the DC Defenders, and they've been together now for 4 years. And I went up and told them this too. I was like, I just want to talk to you about the most simplest play ever. Their 3rd and 10 call that converts right up there in the top 5-10% in the league is all slants both sides, 2x2. You would think that'd be a bad call 3rd and 10, 3rd and 8, because they read the coverage, they figure out which slant's the best one, and it's on that receiver. And they have big, strong receivers. They get 3 extra yards on yak. It works. So you
Yeah.
just look at stuff like that. And of course, we have all slants in, but have I ever called all slants out of 2x2 and 3rd and 12? No, they have, and they've converted. So you just look for stuff like that.
No, it's interesting. It's like it's almost counterintuitive to think that. Yeah, I mean, like the common cliche, probably everybody who watches and listens to this podcast is screaming at their TV every time the ball is thrown short of the stick. So to hear that some of those concepts can convert, it totally makes sense. I One of the areas in talking to some of the players in the locker room and coaches on the Viking staff and throughout the league that constantly I think kind of blows my mind is just the level of like game week depth of study and preparation that some of these guys go through. And so really I'm lobbing it up a one to you of like, can you just describe the level of preparation that is required just from a study to try to discern tendencies in the lead up to a game, like because I just don't think people maybe understand the level of detail that goes into it.
Yeah, no, I'll explain that. I want to hit one last point, too, for the people screaming at the TV that you just said. Because when we go back to the John Madden mode, and it's like, well, why did we throw it so short on 3rd and 12? Well, if you send 4 receivers out and defense know it's third down, you should look at the percentage of how many of those get sacked. Because he has 2.5 seconds to throw, and then now we're supposed to go with the ball if the left tackle whiffs. And so, especially in our league, where a lot of times D line is superior over the O line, but it's
Sure.
just that way in the NFL too. And so, again, getting the ball out quick into the playmaker's hands, making them score. I'm not saying you do it every time, but would you rather take a sack and it's 4th and 18 now? And so, then you start talking about game planning and the level that goes in. That's probably the first thing I look at is pass rush. How we're going to protect this week. And then, you start looking at every player, where they went to college, their evaluations, and where they're ranked on their sacks and their height and their weight and anything you can get on them, and who is their college coach, and maybe you call them and get some data on that. And then, then you go to the back seven and you're looking at their secondary, and then we're looking at all their, just figuring out who they are and their skill sets. Then there's a whole other section. Okay, well, what coverages do they play? What do they like to play the most? Then you look at, what stunts and pressures and how we're going to protect those. And then you go from there, and then you're breaking it down. Like I said, plays are plays, but it's all situational. So what's early down, second down, third down, fourth down, red zone, goal line, coming out, all these different scenarios that you look on the field, and you try to pick up a tell or two that a coach or coordinator may be doing. But a lot of times, some of the greatest defensive coordinators out there don't have any tells. They just play 4-2-1 and man 11 hole, or they play 3 deep zone. Say good luck. That was Legion of Boom. We didn't need to send pressure. We're going to play 3 deep zone. See ya. And those can be the toughest ones to beat, because you run out of just stuff to call that usually go through a game. Actually, I kind of prefer when people switch coverages, because the ball will start going different places and
Sure.
and do stuff. But when a team's constantly playing the same coverage, it's like, oh, we hit our man beater. Well, are we going to run mesh 25 times? I mean, you start asking that, and so yeah, that's some of the details that goes into it, and it helps. Like in UFL, we only have like 3 guys on offense, so everyone does their part, and our guys did a great job. You give them parts of the defense to really analyze, and we present it to the team, and we give them cut-ups. We show them how each corner plays press. Are they inside, outside? Do they jab hand? Do they go with two? All those different things, inside, outside, hand, press, bell. But when you have a whole staff dedicated to it, that's when it gets a little bit more interesting with analytics and tendencies.
Yeah. I mean, the thing you said there, it's also just caught my ear. It's like, should we run mesh 25 times against man coverage? And like, I have to imagine, and I've had these conversations with folks in the NFL, like I would imagine you're always kind of battling, like, you've got these plays on your call sheet, but something works. It's like, do we go back to what worked, or we've got this play schemed up that we practiced all week? Should we call that? Like, and maybe I'm simplifying that too much, but I would imagine there are times over the course of some of these games where you're battling kind of what has worked, and trying to deke the defense again versus another option that you've prepared for in some way.
Yeah, I'm definitely under the philosophy of keep running it till they stop it. And we call it, it's funny, this means a lot of different things to people, but I'll say the word spam. I'm going to spam, whatever, inside zone until they get out of a 4-1 box, whatever, just something like that. We're spamming it. But then you brought up the point of, well, we have this new play in and we worked it all week. The philosophy there for us is, typically 70%, if not 80% of your game plan is your identity you've been running since training camp. We want to get out there, and we've ran certain concepts so much that we read and react faster, that we're going to out execute the defense because we process it faster. And that's how we win games is by beating you head up, not trying to trick you or anything like that in your base offense. But then there's that 20% part where it's an element of surprise. It's like war. You're supposed to come from the north. All of a sudden, you have guys coming in from the south side behind them, and they're surrounded, and they weren't supposed to do, and that's kind of like formations. All of a sudden, it's a new formation. Maybe it's the same play. But if you don't empty that out in probably the first half, no later than the second quarter, when the game is on the line with the fourth quarter, you're going to call the play that you've ran in practice 100 times over the play you put in and ran 2 or 3 times and walked through twice at practice. And so that's kind of philosophy behind that.
As a play caller, I mean, I would wonder, like, what have you over time just learned the most about what the in-game part of that requires in terms of, I don't know if it's adjustment. I don't know if it's picking up on stuff in game. Like in terms of the in game part of it, where do you feel like you've grown the most?
Yeah, that part's well, in our league, you get the iPad.
Sure.
So sometimes we get out there, and typically the old way was scripting like 25 opening plays. That's Bill Walsh. And I'm big in scripting opening plays. I only go about 10,
Okay.
maybe 12 or 15, but 10. Because now I'm going to hit everything I want to hit in that script, see it and watch it, which they couldn't do. They couldn't go back and rerun like we can with the iPad video. So by that second drive, we should have gone through our openers. We have a really good feel of what they're doing, and
Hmm.
then we start scripting those next 10 plays right there with me and the quarterbacks. Okay, how'd they line up to this? Let's go to, and we kind of have an idea, but a lot of times we are waiting to see how they're going to line up and play us because our offense is different. We had different talent out there that require them to like double team Akeem Butler. How they're going to do that? League leading receiver. We also have one of the top leading rushers in Jarvion Howard. Are they going to overcommit to him? And I mean, we had this talent everywhere. So we wanted to see how they were maybe going to game plan. And if they said, we just have to play, man free, nothing special on 88, then we were going to attack a certain way. If they had some unique double team, then we started telling the other guys, Steve-O, all our guys, hey, look, you're one on one. You got to win these matchups. These are our next 10 plays we're going to roll to. So I enjoyed that part. And a lot of times we had success doing that in the second quarter, figuring out how we were going to adjust and come up with a new script after we ran through our initial openers.
Yeah, I think too, like, and again, I could be generalizing the way fans and stuff, but I think like people view the openers in the opening script as just like coach trying to score on these 10, 15 plays. Whereas I do think so much, and I know, I mean, this is how Kevin O'Connell operates with the Vikings. It's like I know that so much of that opening script is just intel gathering of like on like in the third and long situation, what are they playing to Justin? Like, or to get back on track, like what does it look like? And I think it's a fascinating layer of being able to discern what they're doing. How much is that defensive coordinator willing to switch it up in the middle of the game versus maintain what they've began, like the concepts that they've begun with on the defensive side. But that chess match, like I would imagine, your mind is spinning at time, or not spinning, but like it's probably moving pretty fast at time.
Yeah, and well, it can. It's fun, a lot of it, though, with us is quarterback, and
Yeah,
especially towards the end, he can read and check things too, and that's where we became really efficient. Like we started towards the last 6 games, we started averaging 70 yards more passing. We went from 180 to 250 and finished the league leading the passing, including the playoff games. No one threw for more yards than us in the whole UFL. And then we were number one if you only do our last 5 games in total yardage at 350 yards. A big, big reason for the jump. And I say all that because bring up this point. Our quarterback started checking probably 1 out of every 6 plays. So it's fun to go over there and script, but as the old saying is, offense has chalk last. They adjust our quarterback, and then too, what's real big is I have the earpieces to the receivers and the quarterbacks, which is not in the NFL. So we're up
sure.
to 5 seconds. Oh man, hey, they made this adjustment. So it's not only just scripting on the fly on the sideline; it's scripted on the field, seeing them adjust. And we win the UFL championship if we would have hit this hitch and go, or we would have been in the UFL championship, which then again we would win. And that was all an adjustment we saw on the fly. It was 1st and 10. They lined up in quarters. We had an RPO, all hitches. We loved the leverage that the specific corner was playing on our guy. We look, I see the look, signals given. I said, this is about to be a touchdown. And then there's he had to kind of hitch up in the pocket. It made him sell it, and I can still see that ball. It had been an 80-yard touchdown. Oh, Steve-O beat him by 10 yards. it's gone. We go up 27-18. We win. There's no doubt in my mind. It's in the fourth quarter with about 9 minutes left, and this wasn't meant to be. But again, another example of like that wasn't on the that was happening right then and there.
Yeah.
That was not the plan. And when you're able to see and react things like that, uh, and check the runs or check the different concepts, man, it really took us over as an offense as far as the yardage was concerned.
And then are you doing that from the field or from the box? That's
On
always
the
that's my
field.
okay, and that's my other thing is like I've always wondered how hard it is. Like you're identifying cornerback leverage from the field. Not that I mean I wear glasses so I can't see anything, but like I do wonder the level of vision that is required to do that on the fly. If that makes sense as a question.
Yeah. Well, and this is how Mummy's saying is the even if I'm in the booth or sideline, the best person on the field with the best vision is the quarterback. That's why these always,
Sure.
Leach and those guys always let those guys check because they see that from that angle, from that perspective, better than either of the two guys. It takes some getting used to as far as seeing stuff, being on the field, but you do it for so long. You start to stand it a certain way, and you're only looking at certain things. You're not following the ball. That you're able to do those things and make those checks. It helps when the ball's near hash. I'll say that. Uh, but even far hash, you make it work.
I just bring that up because like I've watched so many practices where like I'm trying to identify like run concept, run scheme, and I don't have a good angle, and I always wonder like how good are these coaches at visualizing this stuff from right there. So that's why I bring it up. The last thing you've talked a lot about the quarterback. Understandably, it's I mean it's I can't talk enough about the importance of it, and the people in this place know it very well. But I would wonder for you, who's been around this position and coached it at the depth that you have for a long time, like when you're scouting that position, signing that position, recruiting that position, how do you like hierarchy what you care about most? I mean, you hear people talk about arm talent, you hear people talk about processing speed, intelligence, leadership. Like when you think about all those qualities, what matters most to you and why?
Man, that's a loaded question, and it's not simple. If it was simple, there'd be 30 teams in the NFL with all just blue chip quarterback, all NFL quarterbacks. There's just football's. I was talking about razor thin margins. Football's one of the most complex, difficult games as is, and then the most difficult position in all of sports is quarterback. And when humans try to evaluate that, there's going to be a lot of different opinions. I mean, it's almost like religion. How many? There's Christianity in it. How many different Christianities are there? I think like 1,000 different variations. Okay, so when we start talking quarterback play, a lot of different people are going to have a lot of different opinions on what they think about quarterbacks. So I'll say mine, and then someone will immediately disagree, and that's just what it is.
Sure.
Uh, and so for me specifically, uh, it's I'll just say the top ones. I don't know if one's more important than the other. Uh, he's obviously has to be able to throw for us to even evaluate. So before I look into arm stuff, we really deep dive into his leadership ability and can he control a room? Does he understand protections? Does he understand coverages? And talk to his previous coaches because it's hard to coach those things. Someone just
Yeah.
doesn't all of a sudden become an alpha male if he's not comfortable getting in front of his team and saying, "All right, hey, look, who's the mic on two jet right here? All right, we need to slide 4-man slide left. We get this. Will walks down. Okay." A lot of people aren't comfortable doing that, but as a quarterback, and I think Peyton Manning said this, or to reprieve somebody, I wasn't liked because leaders aren't liked. They're not. And you want to be liked, sell ice cream. That's one of the quarterbacks that said that. And so that's something I've started to value more because great leaders push their guys to want to do more and then to get the respect. That's a major quality. And then the second thing is definitely to me how he moves in the pocket and his presence and how he throws under pressure. Can he
Hmm.
evade? Is he going through progressions when the pocket's closing in? Because those two things aren't very coachable. Like you either can, because a quarterback, you have to ignore the rush and then step up and boom, bang the dig or curl. I, that's either in you or it's not, right? Uh, and you can do drills and all that, but what did he do in the game? Because that's
Yeah.
another hardest thing about quarterbacks is that, man, when that red shirt is on, I've had quarterbacks look like Joe Montana. I mean, they're not going to get hit at practice. They are boom, boom, boom. Then they get into a game. All of a sudden, their drops change. All of a sudden, they're not going through progressions. Uh, they're just falling down because they don't want to get hit because they're used to that red jersey. So it's very hard to practice that position because it's not 100% realistic. And that's just like I just listed. That's the second biggest quality, and there's no way of practicing that.
Yeah.
Uh, and so then the third thing is then you start looking at arm talent and accuracy, because I think you can help with those things. You can help with maybe his footwork, which will help him get the ball out quicker, which will help him anticipate. I think those are things that are easier to develop. I'm not saying easier to develop. Uh, than the first two. It's like if I can find that guy. But the arm talent's fun though, because as quarterbacks, a coach or OC, you start to go, man, look at that throw, and that's a lot more fun than he can't get it there, and it's just
Sure.
watching it. But I mean, one of my favorite former Viking 1 year too, Randy Moss was his favorite quarterback. Man, throw on some Jeff George tape. Holy cow! You can't, and just like I'm saying, you can't coach some of that. You can't coach the way he throws. Oh my God, the throws he used to make, and that's fun as a coach. You're like, did you see that he just but as we've learned though, that's not the only thing that matters, and for me, those other stuff is up there before we look at that.
And I think, like, I mean, the thing you hit on of in practice with the red jersey, a guy, I mean, that's what for it's funny, like, fans look to people like me all the time to evaluate training camp, evaluate summer practice. And it's like, you want to have a takeaway, you want to bring, it's part of the job, but the difficulty is understanding the complexity of how hard it is to actually know if any of it is translatable in many ways. And so I like that you hit the nail on the head there, I think, in the difficulty. And then talking about like how the rush can speed up drops and it can affect, like, all of that stuff is so real. And it's got to be so interesting as a coach to know how hard it is to simulate the real thing. So I thought that was really interesting, and it's applicable.
Yeah, no, and that's just probably. If I went through my list, I'm probably missing another third of what we evaluate. But those to me, just coming off of season, were the top things we were trying to look at and develop.
Totally makes sense. Lastly, and then I'll get you out of here. Like, I mean, I'm sure you're watching college guys, pro guys all the time and what they're doing. I would just wonder, what stands out to you when you're watching around college or the NFL and you're seeing trends or whatever? Like, who are you looking at? What is impressing you? What is interesting to you? Where would you go with that?
Yeah, I'm definitely a little bit more when you say impressed or look at trends. Some of the stuff the NFL's doing at that level, more so than college. College is going through a period right now with the transfer portal that schemes are hard to really enhance because everybody is getting new 60, 70%
Sure.
new rosters every year. So they're trying to figure out the easiest plug and play, which is 11 personnel RPO, and with air raid drop back on third down. That's a high percentage of what a lot of teams do. They go tempo, they go unbalanced, which you can't do in pro football. With the eligible on. There's a way to do it with an eligible left tackle, but those are different rules. Also, the splits and the hashes are,
Yeah.
and so you see a lot of things that work in college that don't necessarily work in pro. I said air raid, that deep choice pattern is just making its way all through college football, and again because I ran deep choice over here, I can run it here, I can run it here. Let me run that stopper go right, and so there's not too much going on. You look at what Lane Kiffin's always doing and Sark because they have West Coast offense backgrounds, which I kind of gravitate to, but they've evolved to college football. So speaking of that, what I've really appreciated and a trend that's kind of coming back, I watched the Rams, I watched the 49ers. Man, there is a lost art being under center and
Hmm.
just how perfect and beautiful those 3, 5, 7, 5 and hitch rollouts, the way Brett Favre ran it and the way Joe Montana ran it with Bill Walsh and Mike Holmgren, starting to make a little bit of a comeback. And then now that opens up your run game and your boot, and those guys have in play action, especially those two teams. And I'm probably missing the Bears, and it's interesting what they're doing. But those are some teams I look at, and I really look at like, okay, we're starting to get back under center. Why? And then what are the top concepts are we doing out of that? And a lot of it right now is to get back to a play action game. But I look heavily at their drops. Like you see them go show the under center look, show a runner play action look, and then boom, 3-step drop, Omaha 4-step out. Boom.
Yeah.
That's so pretty. And you can't necessarily do that in the gun. But there's a reason why everyone's in the gun. You have a high investment in a quarterback, high investment, and you do protect them better there, but you just lose elements of a rhythm timing offense. Catching
Sure.
the ball in a draw, it's not the same as 1, 2, 3, 5, bam! Is this, So I like seeing some of that coming back.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I think like the timing part of it and rhythm and the give and take of what you're giving up with one versus the other is something that's very interesting to me. Well, AJ, this was awesome. Learned a hell of a lot. Appreciate you doing it. Where can people find you? And you whatever you got. I don't know if there's anything you wanna throw out there, but I know you've got clinics everywhere. But yeah,
Yeah, well, I'm on Twitter, Austin James XFL, and if you're interested in this style of offense, you don't have to be a coach. It's crazy. We probably have like 50 Madden players that become air raid certified through Hal Mummy because they want to run the air raid playbook better in Madden and NCAA. And so it could, and then we've had casual fans and sports writers get certified because they try and like want to understand what they're seeing in mesh and learn it. So we do offer an air raid certification program and a lot of different courses. That's over at airraidcertified.com. And yeah, if you're looking to get more of a deep dive to what I talked about today, the whole Bible is over there by the people that invented it.
it's awesome. Appreciate it, AJ. Thanks for hopping on. Good luck this fall, and we'll be in touch. This was awesome.
All right, no, appreciate it. Thank you.
And that'll do it for our conversation with AJ Smith. Appreciate him hopping on. It was a blast to get to talk. I'd be curious from you guys, what stood out in the most? What did you enjoy the most of that conversation? What would you like to hear more of? In relation to that, you could toss that in the comments. Throw them at me on social media at Alec_Lewis at Alec Lewis Show. But we appreciate AJ for hopping on. Show's presented by First Resource Bank. It's sponsored by ProMN on Reel. Great clips. Please hit the subscribe button on YouTube. Follow us, rate, review us on Apple, Spotify, or iHeart. Go listen to the John Krasinski Show and close buddy Dane Moore in terms of the LaMelo Ball reaction, which I am obviously fascinated in. Enjoy your weekend, and we will talk to you very, very soon.